Even though they're together, they're not really living in the same house. That is because black rhinos are very solitary, territorial species. They typically gather together only at nighttime, then during mating season, and mothers and their babies. And that's basically about it. They don't really hang out together often. They're also the smallest of the 5 rhino species as well. They're only about 2,000 to about 3,000 pounds or so. Black rhinos also have that little pointed upper lip, and that upper lip is what helps them to navigate around a lot of branches and bushes while they eat here in the forest. And then on the left side, the large black and white bird is a saddle-billed stork. They are a very obviously named bird. They have a saddle shape on their bill, and they're a stork. They're usually about 5 feet tall. They can have a wingspan of about 9 feet across. Unlike most birds, they don't communicate through any sort of like chirping or tweeting sounds. They actually communicate by rattling their bills back and forth together. It almost makes a sort of like clacking noise. We are heading down toward a river I know of. This river is actually called the Nile of Africa, not because of what they eat. They are herbivores, so they eat plants. They're mostly dangerous because of how large they are. They weigh about 5,500 pounds. Their bite is so strong it can crush a crocodile in half. They can also crush an entire watermelon in their jaws as well. All the gray and white birds you see everywhere are the pink-backed pelicans. A group of them is called a pod. They get their name from that dusty rose color on their back. A lot of people think that color is only there during mating season, but it is actually there all the time. It just becomes a more pronounced and sort of obvious color during mating season to help them to attract a mate. They're also colonial nesters. There's more hippos on the left side too. So they're colonial nesters, meaning they like to nest as a group. The idea is the more birds they have to look out for a nest, the safer it is. There's even a little baby hippo there too. The vultures are there because they eat the bugs and dead skin off of the hippos. So the hippos get clean, birds get fed. It's kind of a win-win relationship, so symbiotic relationship. Both parties benefit. On the left are definitely not alligators. These are Nile Crocodiles. There's not a single alligator species that lives on the African continent. There's only 2 alligator species in the world. Their names start right away. There's the North American alligator and the Chinese alligator. Everything else, I can't see them until we get a little bit closer. And we're going to start with the wildebeest, and then we'll just work our way around. The wildebeests are also called gnus. After the grunting sound that they make, they actually do have one of the largest migrations in Africa. About 1.5 million wildebeests migrates anywhere between about 500 and about 1,000 miles every single year. That's pretty much from Orlando, Florida, all the way down to Toronto, Canada, or I should say up to Toronto, Canada. And if you lined up that many wildebeest nose to tail, that's about how far they would stretch as well. They're going to kind of wander around a bit. On the reserve, it's not really a migration, it's just they're wandering. Migrations usually happen over a ton of miles. Here on the reserve, it's just, let me just walk to this side. So a little bit different here. Our herd does like to split up into 2, which doesn't normally happen in the wild. They'd always want to be clumped together. There's safety in numbers for them. But on the reserve, not a super huge deal. They don't really mind kind of splitting up into those 2 groups. And we have a ring hole here, but there is also a den. We're waiting on giraffes in the road a little bit in front of us. They love standing in the road, and this is about the time of day when they love to stand in the road the most, so we're going to be here for a second. Typically over here we can find animals like African wild dogs. Also, fun factoid about the birds, if you look up in the sky, all the birds are flying around. They're not circling their food. When you get food, you don't just sit there and look at it for a while, right? You don't just stare at your food and then eat it. You're like, oh, food, and then you eat it. Same thing for animals. Like, what would be the point in them just circling and staring at their food? What that means is that they found a really good patch of wind, a good wind current, and they sit there and they just kind of glide along. It eases their flapping, so they don't have to flap their wings. So they're literally just coasting in the air. They're not necessarily looking around for their food. They just circle because the wind current is nice as well. So if you ever see them doing that, that's what it is. The trucks, they're a tan and black and white color. Some of them are in the shade, and one of them has their head in the sun. The African wild dogs are also called painted dogs because of their spots. They are actually some of the most successful predators in Africa. They're actually more successful than lions, cheetahs, and hyenas all combined together. It's because they not only hunt as a group, but because they chase their prey down till their prey falls over from exhaustion. On the left, there's zebras, sable antelopes, and more wildebeests. I'll start with the sable antelopes, which are those darker brown ones all the way at the back. Sable antelopes are a very aggressive and very territorial species. They honestly don't really like anybody else. That's why one of them is hardcore staring at the wildebeests, making sure they don't come super close to their space. You can bet at least one of them for sure is watching those zebras as well. This particular zebra species are the Hartmann's mountain zebras, or just mountain zebra. You can tell because they've got this little flap of skin that's on their neck. It's actually called a dewlap. They store a lot of height than like animals like the wildebeest and the zebras, or wildebeest and giraffes too. Giraffes don't really blend in because they're really tall, but there's one of them on the right, then another one over here. The one that was laying down, it looks like she might have stood back up again. Giraffes don't lay down very often because it takes them an extremely long time to do so. They have very long legs, and so it takes them like an awkward amount of time to fold their legs up underneath themselves and then plop down onto the ground. So once they're laying down, they're usually laying down for quite a while. They don't even really like to lay down when they are sleeping. Giraffes only sleep for about 30 minutes out of the entire day, and they eat for about 20 hours, both of which are due to their digestive systems. She's too close for us to stop. We'll go by herself. So, giraffes are a ruminant, which means that they have a 4-compartment stomach, and all their food goes right on through all 4 of those compartments, so they eat a lot. But they don't really waste a ton of time asleep. She likes to do this blep thing with her tongue, where she like sticks just out the end of her tongue, just like me. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. So sometimes you'll just see like the little end of her tongue sticking out. It's so cute when she does it. She just like the little tiny edge. It's adorable. This one has a little bit of a napkin issue, so it's fine. I mean, it happens when you eat a lot, so when they sleep, it's not one giant 30-minute power nap. It's just a couple of minutes or even a couple of seconds at a time. So most of the time, it's easier for giraffes to sleep standing up. They also like to sleep with their eyes open. It's because it gives the illusion to their predators that they're awake. Easiest way to tell that they're asleep is if they're standing there, staring off into the wilderness, not chewing. So if they're just standing there kind of zoning out for a bit, that's usually them taking a nap. This last one here is my favorite because I like her ossicones the best. The ossicones are those little antennae thingies. See, she's taking a nap. So, the little antennae thingies on their head are called ossicones. On adults, they're made of bone and covered in hair. They're usually used in self-defense, but males use them in this behavior called necking. Necking only occurs between males and is a sign of dominance and strength. They take their ossicones and whack each other really hard with them. So, you'll see the dads doing that with their. He is beautiful. We'll go up here on this side, so we should be able to see him a little bit better. He's eating a snack too. The elephants do eat a lot. They eat about 300 pounds of vegetation every single day. They eat more in one day than we eat in an entire year, but their bodies only process about 60 to 70% of what they eat. So honestly, not the best at digesting their food. The reason he's flapping his ears is because he's hot. They can cool their body temperature about 15 degrees just by flapping those. 15,000 pounds, and they're around 14 feet tall. Females, a little bit smaller, they're usually about 8 to 10,000 pounds, but only about 8 to 10 feet tall. So females are about as tall as this safari truck. Males would be a whole lot bigger than that. Seasons are all the females and children as well.
Other side of the tree.
Looks like there might be a juvenile by that funny upside down tree out there. Now, it's not technically a baby anymore, it's a juvenile. There is a slight difference. Babies nurse, juveniles do not. Elephants become a juvenile at about 4 to 5 years old for one simple reason. That is when their tusks start sticking out of their mouth. So they no longer usually nurse around them. Their tusks start growing at about 6 months old. Yeah, if you've ever nursed children, their pokey, stabby tusks sticking into you, probably not the best idea. So their tusks start growing when they're about 6 months old. They'll grow throughout their entire lives at a rate of about 7 inches every year. It varies, of course, for elephants. The larger one at the back, that's a little bit lighter color. She's lighter colored because she has dirt on herself, which is their sunscreen. She's probably the matriarch based on her size and her tusk length. So she's going to be the most in charge of those elephants. Elephants also have about 100,000. Oh, here's a juvenile one. So just a little bit farther. Elephants have about 100,000 individual muscles just in their trunk alone. They have more muscles just in their nose than we humans have in our entire bodies. The smaller one is the juvenile. So not quite a baby. It takes them a really long time to coordinate all the muscles that are in their trunk. It's like having to learn to walk, stand on your one foot, hop up and down on said one leg, and then rubbing your head and patting your stomach and trying to eat a sandwich all at the same time. So it's a lot for them to do. That's why Younger's entire reserve. He's also one of my favorites. Probably my favorite animal in the reserve too, just because he's big and beautiful. Also here on the left is a flamboyance of the greater flamingos and some ducks pretending to be flamingos. Greater flamingos are the largest and lightest shade of all flamingo. They're usually about 5 feet tall. They weigh about 9 pounds. They do get their color from the variety of shrimp that they eat. It's the bait of keratin that's found in the shell of the shrimp. The grazing along the top of the water. White is not a reference to their color in literally any way at all. It's a mistranslation of the Afrikaans word white. It means wide. That's actually in reference to their mouth. They do have extremely wide and flat mouths. Because they are a grazer animal, it means that they eat the grass on the ground. It's kind of like a giant lawnmower does. White rhinos are also the largest of the 5 rhino species. They're about 5,000 pounds and definitely the most social and friendly. They like hanging out together a lot. They will usually use vocalizations like snorting, grunting, and kind of huffing noises as well. Up on the left, there's a couple of cheetahs. They're on the other side of the big fallen logs. I don't know how well you can see them, but there's 3 of them. So see the big fallen log right in the middle? Just on the far side of it, there are 3 cheetahs, all kind of right next to each other. They're probably hiding right now because of those rhinos. We'll see if the second coalition is a little bit better view for us. But the 3 cheetahs are right smack in the middle of the first area there. They're like little yellow sticks. And like I said, we'll check out the second coalition. They're a little bit more visible, but not quite. See the big pile of hay super close to the truck? There's at least 1 cheetah laying in that hay. See the one that has like sticks all around it? It's like a pile of hay and then there's sticks around it. There's one there. And the second cheetah is all the way towards the front of the truck in these really tall grasses. It's like a yellow stick of polka dots right here in these tall grasses.
Yeah, whatever they are.
So there's always more than 1 cheetah in each and every coalition. And that is because cheetahs have anxiety. They're scared of everyone and everything that's bigger than they are. Basically, if it's bigger than about 100 pounds, they don't want anything to do with it. Having a friend would need to purr and meow as well, which is something most bigger cats cannot do. The lioness is by the really, really tall grasses here on the left to the right of the wiggly tree.
You see it up
There's
there
a tree
on
that
the
has a
grass?
wiggle in it. She's to the right by those really tall grasses.
On the top of the rock.
So she does live up here with 1 other female and only 1
To the
male.
right of the tree.
This is the smallest possible pride. 1 male, 2 females, so 3 total.
See her?
And that is because the lionesses are the ones who hunt. Males just stay behind and watch over the pride, the territory, and any cubs that might be around. That is literally why he has a mane. It's designed to protect his neck. Basically, when he's fighting another lion, they'll bite that mane of fur. The burrowing animals, both of these ones are females. You can tell because they only have 2 warts on their face. They have 1 wart underneath each of their eyes. That's made of bone and covered in hair. Males actually have an additional set right by their tusks. Those are made of fat and covered in hair as well. All warthogs also have 2 sets of tusks. So 4 tusks total. Wow, that's like a hard thing to say. You should try 4 tusks total. The tusks total is like just a tongue twister for the day. So they have those 2 curvy upper tusks, which they usually use in digging. And they have sharper lower tusks, which are primarily their self-defense tusks, but they can use those upper ones in self-defense too, if they would really like to, because they do kind of curve upwards on top of the hill as well. Look at the little one that just laid in the food. He was like, I'm tired. I'm just gonna lay right here in the snacks. See? So cute. They actually have a symbiotic relationship with humans. Both parties benefit. That was my favorite one. It looks like cookies and cream ice cream, see? The like black and white one that looks like a little ice cream. It's my other favorite. And then that one looks like a little moo cow. So it's so cute. Like one of the black and white cows. It's so cute. Look at them all. They're adorable. They actually get a nice safe place to live. They get fed and they get attention from the humans, which they love. But then the humans benefit off of their milk and off of their ability to eat. Just like giraffes, they are a ruminant, so they have that multi-chambered stomach, so they eat a lot. Farmers will often let the goats just run around their